Welcome again to another edition of Talkin CRM. My name is Colin Brogan. With me as always is my co-host, Megan Heuer, Principal, Heuer B2B. Megan, how are you today?
I'm great, Colin. Thank you, as always, for letting me join you on the show. And we're very, very excited to welcome today's guest. Today, we have with us Heather Foeh, and Heather is the Senior Director of Customer Success at Workfront. And as many of you may know, they are an innovator in the area of work management. But the thing that I love about Heather, and I've known Heather for, more than 10 years now, I think it is that she describes herself as a demand marketer who took a customer-facing role 13 years ago and never looked back. So Heather knows a thing or two about what it means to be great in the area of supporting customer relationships. She was the Director of Customer Culture at Eloqua. And for those of you who don't know, that's a MarTech company that was particularly noted for its ability to create a passionate customer base, who really helped propel that company to the success that it became. She was also head of customer experience at another innovator, Path Factory, as well as her current role as Senior Director of Customer Success at Workfront. And Heather, I'm so excited for you to share with us some of the things that you've learned over that 13 plus years of working with customers. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks. I'm super thrilled to be here. So happy to always talk about customer related things.
There you go. Well, we're going to open with, I think, an interesting question given all that's been going on in the world. And that is, what do you think really makes a great customer relationship right now? And what are some things that have changed about what makes a great customer relationship over the last, call it 6-8 months?
I think there's been a pretty big pivot in the word relationship. I think we've always had some good relationships with customers, but it has become much more of a personal relationship since we have all started working from home. You see in people's background something they're interested in, their favorite sports team hanging on the wall. You see their child come up and ask them a question. You see their pets walk across their keyboard. It's a completely different level of the relationship. And everyone's experiencing it. We experience it from our side, and then we see it on the customer side. And so it's created a different bond, I feel like, in those relationships with customers.
Yeah, and certainly for the better, I think, in many ways. My personal favorite is, of course, the pet coming across the keyboard. I think that makes my day often. But I know, Colin, you've got a little bit of a different question for Heather. I'll turn it over to you.
In looking at such a vast base of B2B clients, can you give us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of their shifting needs over the next 6 to 18 months?
Sure. I think one of the things we're really seeing is this need, and it's always been a need, but for people to show that their work matters, right? And so when you're in an office and you're sitting next to people, it's kind of easy to get that recognition, or you're standing up in front of people and giving a presentation, and it's a little bit of a different vibe now. And so people are regularly using our software to show the value of their work and how it ties into the strategic goals of the company. And we're just really seeing an uptick in a wider usage among our customers, right? There was always a good core group and core usage, but it's spread out because there's this long tail of people out there that are trying to make sure they're still connected to the mothership, if you will, now that they're working from home. And the data is certainly supporting it from the numbers we're seeing in terms of people logging into our software, using it, the number of licenses that are growing. And it's just that need to make sure that you still are valuable to the company, right? And that you still feel that connection. Kind of goes back to the relationship thing we talked about a minute ago. It's the work version of that side of things.
Heather, maybe I'll ask a follow-up on that. Thinking about what Workfront does, maybe tell folks a little bit more about that and how you see maybe that helping, I would say, in some ways, solve for the problem that you just described.
Sure. So if you're not familiar with Workfront, we call it work management software. It's definitely several steps up from just task management software. It's not you just keeping track of what you need to get done. It's from an organization and our strategic objectives, what needs to accomplish, and all the moving pieces under that and how they roll up together. So there could be multiple projects or programs knitted together to accomplish the goals of the company. And so you might have roles as a worker on several of those. Marketing teams are a big one that use us a lot. As you know, when you launch a marketing team, there's so many moving pieces and there's so many handoffs that need to happen. And so there's no more handoffs in person of someone handing you a piece of paper to look at or take a look at. And so that's where our software comes in, letting you do those handoffs seamlessly while also still accomplishing your goals. Happily, we've heard from so many customers since the lockdown happened and people weren't going into the office that they just didn't skip a beat in their work because they were still able to keep those connections with their coworkers. And that's always music to our ears.
When you say people didn't miss a beat, it sounds like there's data to support that.
Yeah, no, there totally is. And I've been reading several articles lately too, that the time shift of work has changed, right? You may need to pause during the day and help homeschool your kids for a bit and then catch up in the evening. So it's become a little more asynchronous. And that's where something like our platform often helps solve that problem, right? Those handoffs still can happen even if you're working at an off hours from everybody else. And so that's good to see.
You mentioned, I think customer relationships and sort of how they've changed a little bit. What would you say, thinking about the customer success functions role, and you mentioned a little bit about, how, hey, you love it when people come to you asking those questions. What would you say are some things that people kind of commonly misunderstand about the customer success function? What do you wish they understood about it?
Customer success is not that old of a function. It's certainly not as old as marketing and sales, right? So people don't fully understand what it does. And I think for a lot of people, they equate it with customer service. You respond to tickets or you escalate tickets, or it's very reactive. And in reality, customer success is really proactive, right? It's that I know you, Megan, is my customer. I know what you're trying to accomplish, and I'm going to feed you things that help you accomplish that. Right? As you're ready to finish one and start the next one, I'm going to give that to you. So I always want people to know that we're not just firefighters. For sure, we've done some firefighting, and there's always that little part to any job, honestly. But I think knowing that we're proactive and that we're strategic and we're thinking ahead and we've got a plan for the next 6 to 9 months, if people could look at CSMs more that way and see them more as that strategic partner, I think they'd be more effective in companies and more used to their full potential.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it is really important for people to understand, right? And I think companies who have thought forward about defining that post-sale journey and what steps their customer success folks need to take, and what steps, for that matter, their customers need to take, right, to get the most value and to be successful as they wish to be. I think that really helps. And that actually leads me maybe to a next question then, kind of related to that. We have a lot of marketers who listen to these podcasts, and I think they'd be curious to know, I know I've been working with a lot of companies on this lately, is what should marketing do to help customer success as a function, just like they used to help demand, right? What should they be doing to help customer success now?
I've really been seeing a shift in just conversations I've been having with people too, where you're seeing a lot more marketing dollars shift to customer marketing right now, because maybe there's not an appetite for a lot of fresh buying out there, but the current customers are going deeper and broader and adopting more. And so, and of course, in any economic downturn, you want to do everything you can to save your current customers. And so, I think if marketers just remember to keep customer success as a partner as they go forward to build campaigns or build messaging, customer success spends a lot of time building those relationships with customers, and an ill-timed campaign of some kind or bad messaging can really undo a lot of work that someone's done. So remembering to keep that conversation, that communication going internally in the groups and saying, we're going to do this. What do you think about this? Will this be well received? Is this the right time? Do we have the right list? Those kind of things are very important.
What do you think, if you're coming in as a customer success leader in these times, and you're thinking about, how to evaluate whether or not you have the tools you need, what are a couple of things to look out for?
We're doing a lot of thinking about this, because I think we've actually been more in the tool consolidation mode a little bit, that we've been a little all over the place. And we know that we need to share so much data with the sales team. And so we've chosen to really live in the place that the sales team lives for a lot of our data. And that's been working exceptionally well for us, from everything from risk management to next steps with an account and account plan. We're putting that in the CRM so that they can easily see it across the company. We are looking at some things for sure to help digitize more of our things that we're doing. You know, going on site is not an option right now. And doing a big QBR, EBR, executive business presentation, that doesn't exist anymore. So maybe let's think of a cool, interesting, new and different way to do that, and an exciting way, not just staring at slide after slide on a screen, right? So we've been really researching some things in that area to kind of modernize the way that we do those big presentations and try to get a little of that human element back into it, a little fun element that when you used to bring lunch or cupcakes on site with you. So there's that is definitely our next big project.
Well, you'll have to come back and tell us about some of the techniques that you find, because I know there's a lot of people out there that want to know. So that's a good one, whatever the virtual equivalent of cupcakes becomes.
Okay.
Well, I will close with this question, which is may be related to customer relationships, but I'm not sure. You tell me. And that is, tell me the best piece of advice you've received in the last 6 months or so.
So much advice going around right now, but you know, I've worked remotely since 2003. I've been working from home, but working remotely and being a remote worker are sort of two different things. And I know that sounds funny, but even when I was a remote worker before the pandemic, I traveled multiple times a month and saw other people and had all those interactions. And I think I forgot to give myself a little bit of grace, if you will, and patience with myself, that this change affects me too. And I've talked to so many other people who have been remote workers for a long time, have experienced this. So I just want to say to any listeners out there who are a remote worker and think, what's wrong with me? Why am I having a hard time with this? Or, you know, kind of being impatient with yourself, that you need to follow all the same advice that you're giving to all your employees. I tell them to go for a walk at lunch. I tell them to have a commute by maybe walking around the outside of their house after work, you know, and I haven't taken my own advice to heart very much. And someone really gave me that advice about 3 months ago, and it's dramatically helped my whole situation. So just be patient with yourself, even if you've been a remote worker for a long time.
Yeah, I love that advice. That's excellent advice. And I'm also pleased to hear you're taking it too. And I think that's a good word for all of us to remember. Just be kind to others, but be kind to yourself too, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, Heather, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your ideas too. And we can't wait to hear what those virtual cupcakes look like out a couple of months from now. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Colin and Megan signing off.